So, okay, let's get at her. Welcome to Kevin Unscripted, and I do want to say thank you on the record for coming out, guys, especially the three of you. It's a commitment to come out here and carve out, a time out of everyone's schedule to come out. So I appreciate it, and I think without you guys, I don't think anybody would have anything to work with. So it's badass. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll just do a quick little introduction for what we're going to be talking about. This is going to be an interesting one because it touches on a topic that seems to be an age-old issue, but seems to be becoming a little more prominent in the last little while when it comes to crime and what that entails and looks like. And Citizens Take Action is a group that has formed, and we'll go into exactly when and what that looks like. But on behalf of Citizens Take Action out of Dawson Creek, I've got Tygh to my left here, and then Steve.
Over here.
Son of a bitch. That's recorded where I screwed it up. Steve, my apologies, but Steve and Kirk. And I thought I would do a quick little video that I showed you guys as far as I think when this group started getting put on the radar. And this is my wife, by the way. So anyone who's off camera, say hi, Jody. Hi. Nice little wave. Before I get to the video, there's a couple of quotes I thought I'd throw out there that might be a little fitting for this episode. The first one was from Albert Einstein. Thought he had, if you're going to take words of wisdom, it might as well come from him. He said, "The world is dangerous to live in, not because of the people who do evil, but because of the people who sit and let it happen." And then on his tombstone, it says 1879 to 1955. He was a physicist and refugee from Nazi Germany, Nobel Prize recipient. And on the bottom, it says, "When you stand here, be silent. When you leave here, be not silent." So, that could be somewhat fitting or not, but I thought, that was something worth mentioning. And then the podcast itself from Jordan Peterson, he had a short quote there. It says, "People organize their brain with conversation." And that's, I think, what we're doing right now. And Elon Musk, woke at its core, is divisive, exclusionary, and hateful. It gives mean people a shield to be mean and cruel, armored with false virtue. Yellowstone, even though it's a TV show, but we're all
TV show.
Yeah, damn good one there.
Yeah.
Fair. Fair in his definition is when one side is getting what they want in a way the other side can't complain. So I thought that was kind of neat. And then finally, I don't know where this quote comes from, but thought I'd throw it in here. "Truth does not mind being questioned, but lies do not like being challenged." So I'm sure we'll touch on different elements in that throughout our conversation. Some of the clips and news articles that we've had that are talking about Citizens Take Action directly. The first one is from CJDC, and I'm just going to pull this up, and I got to share this with the viewer.
I'm sure this will put a positive light on what we're after.
Well, we can definitely speak to it after.
Oh, we'll have to.
Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us. And we begin tonight with a warning from the Dawson Creek RCMP. Mounties saying they've become aware of a group of vigilantes, and police are concerned about things escalating in the community. Now, according to police, the group has formed in response to what they say is increasing property crime. Well, Sergeant Jamie Moffat says she understands the frustration around stolen property. CJDC TV asked Sergeant Moffat if the group was actually patrolling the streets. She would only say Mounties believe they are keeping an eye on things. Moffat does say police are working hard in tackling the situation, but she is asking residents not to take matters into their own hands. Doing so could result in criminal charges. It could also impede police investigations. Now, police do stress the need for the community to work together as a whole, and RCMP are asking you to report all crimes to the detachment or call 911 if it's an emergency.
There you go. And then this one here was same, I think, news source through CJDC. November 21st. They used some strong wording here as far as a vigilante group, which is probably something I think we're definitely going to want to touch on. And then there's a couple other here, but it's got very similar themes. So let's pull that back down and say again, thank you for coming out. Welcome. And what is your response, I guess, to that general outline with citizens take action, and the reason for forming, the need for it maybe within a community, and what that all entails? Because like I said originally, this is an age-old problem that seems to really start, it's collecting a lot of attention and traction as far as it becoming a very negative impact on the community as whole.
I guess to speak to that first clip where that was the town hall meeting that was put on through the Chamber of Commerce in Dawson Creek. We were actually all there, I'm pretty sure, but we didn't know anything about each other at that point. That was the spark that lit this little fire, was that meeting, and we all there was side conversations going on, and I know there was what started that night was citizens take action. There was a general understanding that there's nothing really getting done at that point. There was a lot of questions that still weren't answered after the agencies like Northern Health and I believe the RCMP was there. We had questions about BC housing because every single person in that room deferred all of the problems to BC housing. That was everyone on stage. Anyways, yeah, we all had our little side conversations, and this is where DC Citizens Action started. So at that point, we didn't exist.
So you said this was a meeting, city council, and that's where, when exactly was this?
Hall. It was a town hall meeting to address the issues of people being bussed in. There's quite a group of topics on that agenda there, which was property crime, the drug use in the streets, the
safe injection facilities. There was a lot of questions, especially from business owners, that pushed the Chamber of Commerce to actually do something. And my hat goes off to Kathleen Connolly. She actually organized that whole thing with Northern Health. And Northern Health had 3 people that showed up, actually. And then the mayor sat up on stage as well, or the stand-in mayor at that time, Darcy. And the chief of police, I believe, Constable Peddle, he was there to represent the police. But
when was this, though? Was this in November of 2022?
Yes.
It was earlier in November. It was back
I was going to say it's middle of September.
Yeah, probably middle early
September. That video clip I just showed, I think, was on the 17th. No, sorry, the 21st of November 2022. So this meeting that you guys all met up must have been, just before that point in time?
Middle of September.
Middle of September?
Basically, after this meeting, the town hall meeting, there was 12, 13 business owners, people that own property in town.
Just pull that mic in a little bit, sorry.
The people that own property in town that had been hit numerous times, like P&G had been hit. They were getting hit and steady. My shop had gotten hit 3 times. Glacier Glass had got hit. So there was a whole bunch of us that got together, and then we started, conferring and trying to come up with a solution on what we could do to help curb this. You phone the RCMP. It wasn't until the 3rd time my place had got hit, the RCMP actually showed up and took a statement. And it's stuff like that. All we're trying to do is hold people accountable for their actions.
Yeah.
And that goes for mayor and council. That goes for the RCMP. That goes right up to the government. The government. This is all coming down from our head government.
So this meeting, though, was pretty much the reason why it was the spark, or where everybody came together, was because there was that the meeting took place because of a lot of concerns, and out of that meeting it was realized that there wasn't really enough traction or anything being made to solve what the problem was. And so everyone just kind of came together after that meeting and went, man, like this is just something we're going to have to figure out on our own a little bit.
Yeah, it was all due to so much inaction. And, we perceived what was happening with, like, let's say our current city council at the time, our RCMP detachment at the time. We were just like, why is nobody holding these repeat offenders accountable for their actions?
Yeah. I think a lot of people feel that frustration, though. I mean, at what point do you not do anything? And if you do, what does that look like? Because that's the biggest thing.
And
Is
that
what
has
is
been
what
our-
is
our
that?
issue.
What does that look like, right? So was that something that must have been one of the very first, I think, questions that everybody started to ask each other? Is there's a group of people that have the same concerns and obviously would be somewhat like-minded. What can we do would have been probably one of the first questions to address.
I don't think there was anybody that left that first town hall meeting thinking that more than 15% of the questions got answered. It was always, it's this person. Oh, it's that person. Oh, we don't have an answer for that. We don't have an answer for this, right? So
did you find that a lot of the answers seem to be where the people you were talking to should have some form of input or ability to direct, I think, those concerns, but it was being pawned off as to call this person, that's not our jurisdiction. And you kept talking to people that were swimming in very narrow lanes, but none willing to help you out. Because I think that seems to be a theme when it comes to, dealing with anyone, really. When you call an automated person, you're given a different phone number to call, and then eventually you make that circle right back to the first call, right? And it's a vicious cycle, isn't it?
And that's what that town hall meeting we never left with a warm and fuzzy feeling. So my perception of the whole thing was, we showed up looking for some answers as to how the city and RCMP were going to deal with. The big topic of the meeting was drug crime, like drug use, drug-related activity, and the crime associated with it was our main concern as business owners. And we were looking, okay, maybe they've come up with some solution. Let's go see what they have to say. And honestly, the whole time it was like, we don't have any answers. The constable at the time, he told us that crime was down in town in front of every single person sitting there. He said, no, crime is statistically lower right now. Mm-hmm. And just anecdotally from every single person in that meeting who had dealt with property crime, my business partner and I, we've been dealing with some of the vulnerable people, making their way into our business past locked doors and stuff like that. And it was turning into a real issue. And that's why we showed up, because our business is right downtown and we are witnessing horrific things going on, right? Like a block away from my kids' elementary school, I was watching drug users sit on the stoop of a local business smoking what looked to be a glass pipe of whatever they were doing. And
just in broad daylight.
3 p.m.
Wow.
And that was kind of it. And we had a person enter our business, go into the washroom, use drugs in the washroom, vomit everywhere in that bathroom, and then just get up and run out. And our staff contacted us about what had happened, and it was left to us to clean up that mess. Who knows what sort of drug residue is in that bathroom? Who knows what sort of thing is in human excrement like that? Like that was the worst thing that we've had to deal with.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
And then in a work setting, you have to make sure that when you're dealing with bioproducts like that, you've got the proper PPE. Even when it comes to sharp containers, you got to provide proper disposal and whatnot. And from what I'm hearing here, if I can kind of encapsulate what you had just said, is that the people that were on the front line as business owners that were trying to, provide for their family and be a positive contribution to the community at whole were the ones to be able to suffer not only the financial cost, but then also without any kind of ability to be able to react in a way that can try and, stop that from happening, because what was happening wasn't not being recognized, but also just the fact that it wasn't being dealt with was a form of allowing it to grow out of control. And it was at the feet and cost, I guess, of the innocent, whether it's innocent, I use as whether it's a business owner or anybody. And what the problem wasn't, even though the effort was made to talk to the, RCMP and the city and any kind of governing body, it just was shrugged off.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And I mean, to kind of sum up that town hall, there was a multitude of problems happening within Dawson Creek at that time. Like, these guys probably weren't dealing with the vulnerable people situation directly like we were, but they sure had a property crime problem. So there was a lot of people going to this town hall meeting looking for answers on 5 or 6 real points of contention. And so we all left that thing feeling, hey, we've not really been heard. The problem was deferred to agencies who weren't even there. And what are we going to do about it now?
Mm-hmm. With actually feeling like there was no other option.
Yeah.
That's what it sure felt like to us.
Yeah.
It was actually said many times that, there's really nothing we can do about it from the RCMP, that, we'll document it. They're wearing a mask. There's not much we can do. We only had video, and in my experience, in our business, we were broken into 6 times in 10 days. It was just escalating to a point where even the people that were had hired security patrols it wasn't effective.
Especially, I guess, also with the fact that you're trying to work within the confinements of private citizens. Like, you're not really able to engage. You're on the defensive end of things. So if you're hiring security, I mean, they're not really able to engage in any way.
No.
I mean, now you're dealing with a safety factor. And so how much are you able to actually work within those confinements, right? Without it now being inadvertently being turned around where you're the bad guy.
Well, and the damage to the property, on a larger business, you cut a hole through a fence, it costs a couple $1,000 to get it repaired. You've lost whatever tools or equipment that they have taken, and there's started to be some real associated costs, and it wasn't just a one-off. I think the North has had property crime for as long as we've been here, but it escalated to the point where it was becoming a daily and a weekly thing, and you went home, you drove around your property, you made sure that everything is where it was supposed to be, and the morning you came in, you drove around that property to make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. And it really felt like nobody could help you. And we didn't know what to do. We sat together many times trying to formulate something like, how do you fix this? And
disparaging.
It is.
And it seems like, I think at the end of the day, the concern of longevity and how long does this go for probably started to become a factor as far as at what point, with all the efforts and abilities to be able to address it in one way or the other, what's next? And so what did that look like then at that time? How did you say, okay, we're going to form a group, or how did that look like? This is what we're going to do. Walk me through, I guess, how the infancy of Citizens Take Action kind of started.
These guys could speak more to the start.
Yeah, like I said, there was probably 12, 13 of us that had been hit repeatedly. And we'd meet up weekly, try and decide, okay, well, what's the best way to deal with this? And then we started getting together and we'd go out patrolling. Once you go out and you start patrolling it, between midnight, 3:00 in the morning, you see some of the stuff that's going on. You can't unsee it. And we would find, the hot spots, and we would focus on there, and and then it just grew from there. 'Cause now, 12 people keep this up every single night. We all have day jobs to do.
Yeah.
You know, our main goal was to protect our stuff. And then it just escalated. It went from not just protecting, you know, making sure that there's 12, 15 businesses that are good, but we're going through town and we're picking up on this person and that person and, you know, finding out what's going on. We had, for the longest time, we had a problem at the Alhart Hotel. There was some criminals that stayed there. They hadn't paid rent in 3 or 4 months. They had actually physically abused the manager and his wife twice, threatened to kill him. They weren't paying their rent. They had generators running outside. It was an unsightly mess. It was all stolen property out in front of the motel. Then the cops said they couldn't do nothing about it. You know, we would do.
So, not to interrupt you, but that just seems so. This is private. It's a business.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You have people that aren't paying whatever the rent, I guess, and they're not following the rules, and it's compromising your ability to be able to do business.
They were threatening that 70-year-old
And they're
couple
being
that
threatened.
runs that place.
And then the response is there's nothing that could be done. So I don't understand that just seems unreal, eh? Like that's even
exactly
a reality of it,
we
though.
all
Yeah,
felt.
that's how we all felt. Like, you know, there's absolutely
That's shocking,
no way.
though. Like that's why I wanted to highlight that, because that's to breeze over that is almost desensitizing exactly what's going on when somebody's being threatened in a place of business. Because I feel like if I was to go into anywhere, really, Walmart, or if I was to do that myself, I mean, I can't imagine. I feel like I would have been tackled and uttering threats and everything else. So that's just in itself unbelievable. Like that, what was done to that? Like the RCMP just brushed it off.
Yeah,
And
they basically kept saying there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do. And part of our patrolling is what we do is, like, we had a chop shop right in town. So we would go spotlight that where, you know, there'd be 15 of us show up. And, you know, just to bring light to the community that there was an issue there. You know, they would phone the cops themselves, and the cops would show up within 3-4 minutes. We'd have 4 cruisers there, and they would start at us to start with. And then we'd explain to them, you know, we're not doing nothing. We're not going on their property. You know, we know that there's stolen stuff in there. We know this is going on. And we would stay there, and, you know, that way the neighbors knew what was going on. And we did the same thing with the Alhart Hotel. And between us and the cops, we got together and managed to, the cops actually managed to figure out that, yes, these guys could be evicted from there because it was a motel and it's only a day-to-day thing. So it started off, I think there was 12 of us there and we had the business owner, the guy that owned the hotel. He showed up. The cops went in, they cleared it, took everybody out of there. And then they allowed us to go in and remove all this garbage. So we had companies in town donate bins, and we had, by the end of the night, there was 60 of us there loading up garbage bins of stuff from this hotel, getting it all cleared out. The patrons, the rest of the patrons that were there, they come over. They were just cheering when they found out that what was going on, what we were doing. And they were just ecstatic because they felt threatened themselves. They're paying rent. They're from out of town. They're up here doing oil field work or whatever. And they felt threatened because of these people that were in the corner that the cops would do nothing about. So that was to us, that was a very big win for us.
yeah, absolutely. And
It's
I
nothing
mean,
more powerful than when we finished up, we were sweeping the floor and I walked outside and the owner or manager come up and he's a really old Chinese guy, and he came up and he looked at me and he nodded his head, and I looked at him and I stuck my hand out to shake his hand, and he gave me a hug, and just sat there and wept on my shoulder because nobody helped him, and there was nothing that he could do, and I just looked at the rest of the guys, and it was a powerful moment that I instantly felt like, boy, we did something here tonight.
this is what we should be doing. The when you were telling that story, a few of the, I guess, details in that story that kind of struck me a little bit was the fact that, well, two things: the power of community is powerful, But then also it speaks to, I think, how long that had been going on for when you're dealing with like up to 60 people and garbage bins and needing to do a cleanup crew. That's not a one-time offense that's done over just a one night. That's a period of time that's gone on for a very long time. And these people were the victims and felt like there was nothing that could be done up to obviously a certain point, right? And that point was obviously a line too far.
When we were able to collect the stolen property that was there, we were absolutely able to separate it and put ads out to them to, the business owner to come and pick it up. And
the stolen property was not, the cops didn't take that?
No, we managed to get close to, I think it was close to $65,000 worth of stolen stuff.
In that story you just told?
Yeah.
$65,000?
Back to the people, the rightful owners. And that's between, power tools and bikes and all sorts of stuff.
So you're able to... be able to find the stuff, categorize it, and actually get it back to the owner. And that's just shocking. Isn't that unreal? That's unreal.
No, it was that night.
So how did you come up with the 65,000? Is it just like, okay, an average dollar figure for a drill is about $200, and you just bought?
We started looking at welding equipment. We picked up a pipe. There was a lineup tool, and then there was a pipe beveler. Good for 16 to 20 inch pipe. And you start looking at the cost of that, it adds up so fast.
But the possession of stolen goods, like I don't know law very well, but the possession over 5,000 kind of pop out, and like all these things, none of that was dealt with.
No, the cops said that there was no way that they could prove who took it. So now they can't charge nobody.
And they're just going to leave those items there.
Yeah, that seems to be what we run into all the time. Is unless you catch somebody red-handed with it, maybe performing a crime with a stolen vehicle or using stolen tools to commit a crime, you can't. It's so hard to prove it. Like it's so hard to prove. Like,
you gotta have the serial number, and you have to have everything documented, and that can't be removed from that tool, truck, or whatever. And if it's not, if a criminal pulls the serial number off it, and there's no serial number to prove it, it basically is almost an unchargeable offense, because you can't prove that was not theirs. And we've ended up learning so much over this that you think would be so cut and dried. There was a generator running the Elohart. I come there, have a look. That generator is distinctly ours, but there's no serial number left on it. I was advised, do not touch that. Just keep on going.
Because now you're in possession of stolen property.
Absolutely.
That doesn't make sense though. If they were in possession of stolen property and then something's happened and now you have that same item, how can they charge you with possession of stolen property when it wasn't in the first place?
This is what we've been dealing with since the very start. And this all stems from the federal government giving their requirements to the provincial government, and there's far too much leniency when it comes to property crime. They've made it almost impossible for the RCMP to do their job and convict these people of theft. You have to catch them almost in a vehicle.
Yep.
The rest of it seems like they just get away with it.
Well, that's true. And I'm glad you kind of brought up the RCMP part, because before I asked that, like, I'm sure there's other stories that I want to come back to, but to kind of hit on like what you were talking about as far as that RCMP hands being tied, and it's coming from above. We made the comment earlier, erosion by design. Their hands are tied in a lot of instances, it seems like. And I can only imagine if I was in that position as an RCMP officer, and you have to make sure that everything is so meticulously documented, and any little bit of breeze in the wind can pretty much tarnish something that looks to be so obvious. that it would be disheartening almost to the point of where, to be an RCMP officer must be in some cases demoralizing, right? When your hands are tied to that extent.
That I can kind of speak to that. I'm good friends with an ex-RCMP from Dawson Creek. Great guy. This guy would exemplified what a good police officer is. He's the most law-abiding guy I know, and he has a real problem with criminals. But his job, I think he said he was 12 years with the detachment or the RCMP and up in Dawson Creek for a long time. And he ran into so much red tape in his job whenever he would put together a case on, let's say, drug-related crime and that sort of thing. He would spend months to do all this paperwork, just like you talked about there. And he would have all of his ducks in a row, and he would go and they would, do the arrest. They would have all the evidence in place. They would do the arrest. They would get these people, into custody. And then what we learned along the way here is police officers don't actually have the ability to charge people. They recommend charges to Crown Counsel.
Well, innocent till proven guilty.
Exactly. So now that's put on Crown Counsel to make the decision. So what he was finding was he spent 3 months of his life putting together as solid a case as possible, and it went to court, and Crown Counsel threw it out. And these people were back on the street after committing who knows what sort of drug-related crimes. And he goes, I'm done. Yeah. I am done. This was like a highly trained officer of the law who knows how many, hundreds of hours of training he put in over his career, and he really, really cares about the community. And he couldn't do it anymore because his hands were tied, just like you said. And that's where I've started to sympathize with the RCMP. Like, of course you're going to be demoralized if you go, let's say you show up to your job every day and you have a certain job to accomplish. Let's say you're a carpenter and you have to build a house. And they say, no power tools allowed. You're going to build this thing just like they did back in 1915. Here's a hammer. Here's some nails. Do your job. And they go, well, I don't have all the proper tools to get this done within the proper timeline, this, that, and the other thing. What's going to happen? You're not going to be a carpenter very long, are you?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but it creates, how do you attract people into a workforce when we're already stretched thin, not just within the RCMP, but just in general? You talk to anybody in any trades or profession, look at our healthcare system and everybody's schooling and everything else. That is the single most common issue that we seem to be having is the workforce just isn't there. And so now you're trying to attract, people that are wanting to make a positive change. And the environment not only is stressed, as far as manpower, but then also the environment and your ability to be able to actually have a satisfaction and sense of accomplishment within your job. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're talking about building a house, and I mean, it's pretty hard to finish that to the very end and have that sense of accomplishment and pride in the fact that you're able to, finish a project. And so, like I said, demoralizing. And it's important to touch on that because there is a lot of people, even within our region, that I've come across sometimes, surprisingly enough, that feel that the police, are the problem, defund the police, and this rhetoric that we keep hearing when it comes to that, and then surprised at the result and outcome of that.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Like at the start of the infancy stage of this Citizens Take Action group, we did blame the police a lot. Yeah. We're like, why aren't they doing their jobs? But after the past 3 or 4 months of actually going and speaking with the RCMP themselves, speaking with city council, speaking with all of these agencies, where we start to find out this is not the RCMP's fault. Like this, they're only able to do the job with the tools they've got, right? So we find out, okay, they're probably lacking the amount of people they need, and they have to do all this paperwork. But this, again, stems from the provincial government's mandates and their narrative and everything that they make RCMP officers do. Mm-hmm. And one thing to speak on your other point there about it's demoralizing and people don't want to do that job. We've found out just through, conversation and whatnot that the RCMP right now is having its lowest number of recruits coming out of Regina in Canadian history. Like, they don't even have enough young RCMP trained to come into the force. Like, even if we opened up 10 more positions in town,
just
they
for
can't
sustainability, just to be able to replace the open positions as
because
they
people don't want to do the job because the government has made it a horrible job to have.
Yeah.
Like we've talked to numerous cops or RCMP, and like they'll bust somebody in a 12-hour shift. They'll bust one person 4 or 5 times. So really, what's the point?
Not only that, but yesterday I had Dan Davies and Mike Bernier on, and we touched on that a little bit. And this stat I'll use just because I'm using the numbers he had given me. But he said in Dawson Creek, like that area, that region, so South Peace of Dawson Creek, Puscoopi, that area, have 20 RCMP on staff. So that is now in total. That's not just on shift at any given time. So you have people that are on, cross shifting, day, night shift, vacation, whatever have you. So I don't know what that translates into for cop per person as far as population density versus RCMP presence. But 20 people, we're a quarter of the RCMP population, employment in this room alone, pretty much. So
yeah, I mean, I've spoke actually to a few of the current RCMP officers, and they say sometimes they have as little as 2 people on shift, and they're responsible for potentially going all the way out to Tom's Lake or Kelly Lake.
Wow.
Could you imagine, like, if you have 2 people?
Yeah.
And now you've got to drive an hour out of town?
Well, you're starting to pick your battles, right? Because if there's something or the potential for something to happen now in a high-risk area or maybe a high-chance area, the chances of them going a little bit further out, and it's a number and probability game now that they have to go risk versus reward, or risk management, I'm sure, becomes a very real thing in a line of, in their profession, which just adds to the strain of the system. So I want to touch on like what you were saying as far as that story you had just told. But before we do, I don't have a video, but I know that a small group of people had gone to the Dawson Creek City Council and made a little bit of a presentation or a case. Was that any different than the original meeting that you guys had gone to that resulted in forming this group, or how did that? What was that like?
I think that turned into. So early on, we were driving, trying to just figure out what we could do. We could found out that we could pattern. Where some of the crime was, and you could drive by a dozen addresses and see kind of the fallout of it, and yet there was nothing we could do. And more people kept coming and talking and wanting to be part of the group. And as that time, like, we were growing so fast without direction, that we kind of had to have a strategical meeting with about the original 10 and say, what are we doing? What is our plan? And we soon figured out, okay, well, we need to do some political work. We need to get into the city hall. We need to go and sit with city council and say, we have a brand new city council that just come in. Everybody's fresh. We're hoping to.
Yeah, this was right after elections that we had last year.
Yeah, and so we knew the people. Lots of us voted specifically to this, the people that we thought could actually do the most for our community. And once we started putting that together, there was people that really wanted to stay on the patrolling end of things, and some people wanted to do more in the political end of things. And we kind of just, as a group, kind of started dividing and conquering to okay, we're going to go to city council. We're going to have some asks and see what is said. And that was kind of the beginning of the whole political movement on this. And, it was, but we were growing very quickly, and it was becoming, you know, it was kind of chaotic because every week,
It definitely was.
Yeah, it changed every single bit. Every week was just a little bit different, and we had so many ideas coming from so many different people from so many different backgrounds, and we started inviting previous counselors, and we were using these connections, and these people were coming out of the woodwork to assist us. Yet we weren't this, you know, organized group
So
yet.
people were coming out of the woodwork to assist you, and you're growing. Is this just general? These are people within your community?
Yeah.
Yeah,
These
these are
are
all
citizens?
locals.
Okay. And they were just hearing and finding out about the group and what was going on, and people started to feel the same and wanting to get involed. And that's what you're talking
we're
about growing.
asking
It's
them,
just the
yeah. How can we do this better, or how do we get this group to respond to us? And you find out that you can't just go and say, this is our problem, this is what we want fixed.
Yeah.
Because that may not be the person that can fix that, but they're the next step to get to there.
Yeah, maybe they know the right person to ask.
They know the steps that we got to
Yeah.
take. Like we had an ex city councilor, come and say, okay, well, if you guys want to take this to City Hall, you gotta have your delegation in by this date, this time. You gotta have specific asks of what you want. You can't just go in there and rant and rave. You gotta have your asks. You gotta, put it to them that way, and then go from there. And
We had no idea.
yeah, and it was the same with the police. Like, like when it come to okay, well, if you talk to this person, you're going to get stonewalled. You talk to that person, you're going to get stonewalled. We had next RCMP say, okay, well, these are the steps you need to take if you want this to happen. You got to talk to this person. There's no point going here. You go here. And we found out that the RCMP is very statistics. That everything they do is on statistics. So part of the reason that the cops figured that, oh, well, they don't have a problem there is because 90% of the people don't even bother reporting it. It's a $250 item, or it's a battery, or it's a propane tank, or it's a jerry can. So they don't even bother reporting it. So now the cops don't think we got a problem because the statistics say that you don't have a problem.
Yeah, call volume was down in the detachment.
Yeah. So if there's one thing that I can put out to all the listeners is it doesn't matter what happens. If it happens, phone, report it, get a file number. That way you're now a part of the statistics. You're going to get results.
Man, that
on
is so
statistics.
misleading, isn't it? I'm glad you said that, because I'm the same way. And I think a lot of people, obviously, it's reflecting in the statistics. Sometimes I don't think I should be podcasting at all. Jeez. But I mean, that is a very, very interesting point, that they are thinking that all is good, when in all reality, the opposite is happening, because obviously people don't think that reaching out is going to get them anywhere.
Yeah. And it goes right down to, we had one member, his boat got stolen, right? So he managed to find out where it was. So he went and got it back, right?
Because to make that phone call is now just going to it's going to be futile.
Well,
and make things worse.
Yeah, and from my point of view, I had to phone 3 times, 3 different incidences when my yard got broke into, and the first time I had a vehicle that was stolen from my place, and it still took the 3rd time before a cop even come and took a statement. And then so you think to yourself, well, geez, like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Why even bother?
Well,
So-
it's because they've been, cut back, and they get shorthanded, and we found out the RCMP does not backfill maternity leaves and short-term disability, long-term disability.
Oh,
They
so
don't-
that's an empty position.
yeah, exactly.
just for that period of time.
It's
It
a
could
soft
be a year and a
vacancy.
half, a soft vacancy they
okay.
call it, but they do not backfill. So, I think this is how the group got started, is we would phone and not see results. So unfortunately, over time, like you said, you just kind of become numb to the fact that, oh, well, it's only a $200 item, or it's just my that's been taken from
It's
me.
not worth the effort.
I'll go deal with it because the police are too busy dealing with now drug-related overdose problems in town. Man, the police and the fire hall, they go out on, like, I talked to one of the firefighters in town. He said, usually it's between 6 and 8 times a week they go out and respond to an overdose. Well, that's eating up a lot of time and a lot of resources. So no wonder they,
This
in
once
their
per day.
minds, don't have
Yeah.
time, because obviously human life comes before property crime.
Yeah.
So we're finding out that they're just overworked, underpaid, and under-resourced. As much as, our government officials like to pretend they're not, and they say they're not. Statistically, they're not. But just like Steve said, phone it in. It pays to phone it in, because now when the RCMP detachment in town goes from 3,000 calls a year to 7,000 calls a year, that's how they get more help.
So our the last file number that we put in, just for 2023 is 1,463. To put that, so that's 1,463 file numbers created in 2023.
Oh, wow.
That's
For the
2.5
RCMP.
months.
That's
For the
just
RCMP.
Dawson Creek.
Yeah, Dawson Creek. So
Say that. So what's us? Just what that number that you just
1,463.
for what?
That's file numbers.
That's
so,
files created since January 1st in Dawson Creek.
for someone calling?
Yeah,
in?
it's for
How
whether
did you get
it's
that
theft.
number?
So
we called
found
one
out
in yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. So what
Oh,
happens?
so that's from this group?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, well, not just from this group. That's in Dawson Creek in total. So anybody that calls in gets a file number, and they run sequential. So it's good, and this is what we figured out from some of our members and stuff, is that's where the file number is a sequential thing. So we go out in the community.
That's how.
They call
I
it
gotcha.
in,
Yeah.
and we just record our file numbers.
Yeah.
So that we can
I
follow
see.
up on it, right? And it's
Oh,
important.
Fucking crafty.
Yeah, so we had phoned in last week, and the file number given to us on a stolen vehicle was 2023-1250. So just in 1 week, that's over 200 phone calls.
Wow.
Or 200 files
Files.
created.
200
That
files
could be 300 phone calls.
Yeah, but it resulted in a file.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it sure seems like a staggering number.
It does.
In a short period of time.
I don't know how many days this year so far, but we're in the third month. I'm sure we can figure it out. It's quite a
we're
few.
2.5 months in, right?
Yeah.
It's the 15th today, I think.
Yeah. But let's.
About
1,405
16.
days, about 75 days, yeah.
You said 1,400. Oh, let's bring this up.
1,463.
Divided by how many days? 75? you said?
75.
So that's on average of. Why is this
I think you got to hit your num lock there.
divided by?
Should be around just about, 18
Yeah,
19?
just under 20 a day. So one every hour.
So that's
on
one
outlier, just
call
under.
per day
24
per
hours a day.
RCMP officer currently employed in Dawson Creek.
Wow.
So it's a staggering number.
Unmanageable.
It
Yeah.
is, right? And, early on we were very frustrated in, say, response time, not understanding everything that goes behind the scenes. And, we would track the amount of time it took for if a call was made to when the RCMP would come in. It was sometimes it was like 4 minutes, but upwards to not showing up at all. And that's a very frustrating thing when you're standing there watching something happen.
Yeah.
The guy's going down the back alley with a flashlight, and you phone it in,
Yeah.
and you say the guy's going down the back alley with a flashlight, and nobody shows up. So, and you go and so you get this real dim light, the view of where we're at, and when you start to see the challenges of their job, you start to understand a little bit. We soon realized that we got to stop just being on against the RCMP. This is a bigger systemic problem. It's at the city level who funds the RCMP, and it's at a higher level than that, the provincial, and then we go through these in some of our strategy meetings, but it was happening so fast. The group was growing. property theft just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And
well, did they give you any kind of sense of direction on how maybe, that added headcount as, private citizens might have a role or ability to be able to be a support service for maybe some of what they're doing at all, period? Like, was there any kind
not
of
at that
direction?
Not in our initial phases.
So we were labeled vigilante.
It's probably a good time to
What,
start
at the
speaking
beginning?
about that.
At the beginning, we were, the RCMP were the ones that labeled us the vigilante group in Dawson. And the fallout from that name, really, like some of the Facebook posts that we read, they were horrific. They were, we were running over kids on the street, and it was
total lies.
Why? What? That just seems like such an odd backlash, and especially so when that was really early on. It was that before you guys went to city council.
It was happening.
Like, you made that
present.
It could have all been in the same time. This all happened within a few weeks.
Yeah, I think it was a little before we actually made it to city council. They had labeled us vigilantes.
Like, it's right on the news headlines. And what we found out actually is we're not the only group doing this throughout the province. There's been actually throughout the whole country, because the RCMP had a blanket statement that they labeled any group kind of taking action into their own hands
as vigilante.
A vigilante group.
Well,
and it was the actual blanket statement that they would just change the town name, Penticton, somewhere in New
PEI,
Brunswick.
Yeah.
Somewhere in PEI, all sorts of things. And we're just like, oh, okay, we get it. Like
the vigilante, I knew this was going to come up, so I got what the term means if you want to look on Google, but it says a member of a self-appointed group of citizens who undertake law enforcement in their own community without legal authority, typically because the legal agencies are thought to be inadequate.
Sounds like what we're doing, but I guess what we've always made our mantra right from the very start, we quickly realized you cannot fight crime with crime.
Yeah.
And so we made it our number one rule that we will keep everybody safe in this group, and we will always act within the confines of the law. Because if we start to, act like criminals, we're no different than the people that are causing all the problems in town. Now we're just bullies, we're this, we're that, and we quickly realized we will never be able to achieve our long-term goals politically and systemically help change things if we are criminals ourselves. Yeah. So
that's true. I mean, social licensing and the ability to be able to work with, I think, positive agencies, whether it be the RCMP or the city or anything, is crucial when it comes to having any kind of positive change or longevity, like you said. And the vigilante term, from when you first hear that, it's like, it's got the cringe factor to it. Even though the terminology that we were looking at seemed to be fairly accurate, but it's got that stigma that's associated to it. You're like, yeah, well, that is what it is. But then you're like, at the same time, that's not really something that you want to have as a title. I
had my mom come to me and say, I heard you were part of a vigilante group.
Well, how do you say that? How do you acknowledge that with pride?
Yeah,
I mean, that name doesn't have.
And I said, okay. I said, Mom, I said, and this is going to be between you and I. You know these people, dude. And I named off about probably 8 or 10 of them. And I said, these are people that we grew up with. These are people that I knew their parents, right? I knew these people for many, many years. You knew them, their parents. And I said, they're not bad people.
No.
These are business owners. These are people that are just working in our community. They got kids. Our kids played soccer with their kids and stuff like that. And she's like, okay, well, I just don't want you getting yourself into a pile of trouble. And I said, oh, listen, I'm 50 years old. I really don't want to be in trouble either. So, we've gone through it. And the group really we addressed that by saying, we're not vigilantes. We're vigilant. And this is something we've been pushing, and we push it to all our new members. we have a new member package that Tygh drew up, and it's fantastic. Explaining what our expectations are for this. If you're out and about, what you do, and it has been about being vigilant. When you see something, call it in. Right? We're not stopping these people. We're calling it in. We'll see where they're going. And
we don't engage with anyone, potentially involved in criminal activity. You can bring it up on our website, actually, dccitizenstakeaction.com. That welcome package that I created for members has kind of been, put into point form on this website. And just like Kirk is saying, like, safety is our number one rule. We don't want to ever see anyone get hurt. Not just our members, but members of the public or, people potentially committing crime. Our big thing is safety of our members, safety of the public, and we need to stay on the right side of the law. So we contact the RCMP when it comes to, doing our thing. So,
but to have that kind of backlash, you go from people wanting to become a part of the group because they want to see and be a part of, being able to do something to address a growing concern that isn't healthy or safe, really, at the end of the day. But then also kind of being labeled by your peers, so to speak, as something that is anything but, I think, coming from a genuine place. And from what we were talking about earlier, it seemed like at a point of where, almost no other options were really able to be dealt with. So was that disheartening a little bit? I mean,
it's definitely been a difficult stigma to lose. Still today, we still get referred to it. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished, and we reflect back on that often, because going out at 10 o'clock till 3 or 4 in the morning and seeing some of the stuff in your community, it's demoralizing. It's hard to watch. And then to go out the next night and see the same people doing something almost exactly the same in a different street, you sure wonder what the heck you're doing and what is wrong with our society. There's
a lot of other things I think that are going on too with the catch and release. I mean, that definitely, if there's no repercussion, and it seems like if anything is done, the backlash is in support of the people, obviously in the wrong.
Yeah.
And then when they are caught, they're just kind of thrown back out within a very short period of time to continue doing what they are doing.
We're kind of finding it's only the, people that commit crime themselves that are the ones that really have a hard time with criminals being treated like criminals. Every single person I've ever talked to about what we do and how we try to help the RCMP and that sort of thing, they back us 100%. Every single person that we've helped recover their stolen property, guess what? They're pretty thankful.
Yeah.
And even people that have never had any problems with theft or had any problems in dealing with, certain things in town, they show support, but silently, because honestly, they don't want to get caught up in the negative connotation of being supportive of a quote unquote vigilante group, or they don't want to potentially be part of a vigilante group. And we need to get the message out that neither do we. We don't want it. We aren't a vigilante group at all. We're just a group of people that are trying to help make some positive change in our community. And we do a lot more than just, going and trying to stop crime. Like last night, for instance, there was a young boy about 10 years old who was reported missing. Well, I would say that there was 20 of our members that, out of the goodness of their heart, just started searching all night. They were out there all night. This kid wasn't found until sometime this morning, and we weren't asked to do that. They just did it, and we have a lot of members, ladies that'll go out and, on these cold nights, they see these vulnerable people living on the street in our town. Well, they have little care packages made up of socks and toiletries and blankets, and they take them coffee, and that's the kind of stuff that we're about, man. We're about community, and we're about protecting our community and giving our kids the community we grew up in, man. Like, that's what we're about, and we every single person in our group feels very strongly about that, and we feel very strongly about not committing crime ourselves. Mm-hmm. So we would really like to see that vigilante tag drop.
Yeah, well, I don't doubt that at all.
Whenever we have our meetings, we have a mission statement, and I'll give it to you right here.
Sure.
And that is to grow a group of concerned citizens to bring awareness to what is going on, document what we see and what the RCMP are doing. Peaceful organized protests at known hotspots and peaceful patrols and surveillance to keep our residents safe. And that's it. Our goal is to restore peace of mind back to our community. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we want. We want to be able to, if you put your bike in your backyard, not have to worry that it's not going to be there in the morning. I mean, there was a time when I grew up where my bike half the time was in the front yard. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if it did go missing, you knew who had it. Yeah. And you just went and got it back. It wasn't this, you know, this where today we don't know if our stuff is locked in our trucks, if our truck's going to be there in the morning. And there's video surveillance everywhere in our community. That is, everybody knows that. And yet you put a face mask on, which COVID helped us with, of course. Thank you very much. And everybody could legally wear that mask and
get up to whatever they want.
Walk up, stand it there right in front of your camera, and there was absolutely nothing anybody could do because you couldn't 100% positively ID that is that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that, and I remember other forums that aren't around anymore, but you remember, I mean, I think we're in the same age group here, but I remember in neighborhoods they had a yellow square sticker, and then they had a black image of it looked like a robber, and it was the neighborhood watch. And if you ever seen anything kind of happening, you'd call the RCMP, and people were caught and shamed to try and, reduce people from lurking around and getting into mischief. Mm-hmm. And now it's the opposite of that. And I'm a little surprised at it, but what is, like when they say now, when you're getting negative feedback, what are they saying? Like, who's the victim here? Are they defending the people that you're interacting with somehow, or?
Oftentimes, yes. Yeah, we
Is it a mental health thing, or like what exactly is?
It varies.
What is the concern?
It varies from instance to instance. Like, yes, there's sometimes people that live on the street, that sort of thing. They're suffering from mental illness, so that's a whole different ballgame. Like,
yeah, well, there's a distinct difference, between those two, and I think it really commonly gets put into one umbrella or one ball, and they
it really isn't. Like,
it's not at all.
Dynamic thing. Yeah.
So we walk the community midday even and see and talk to some of the homeless people and just get their story. See how they got here, if they're enjoying being here. Buy them a coffee or something just to sit and talk to them, and when they're out in the community talking to this, you learn some stuff that, you can definitely see some mental health issue in some. Others, you hear some pretty stories that you're not too sure about whether they're true or not or whatever, but that's their story. And when you're putting in the time and seeing that sort of results, you soon realize who's got. That's not the trouble. That may not be the one that's stealing the stuff out of your backyard.
Yeah.
So, you can spend less time working, seeing that person in the middle of the night and start to see where, you get to know their name, whether it be, Mary Lou or whatever the name is, and they're on that spot and that's where they're staying for tonight and whatever. But the crime is being committed elsewhere. So, you know, it's you realize that it's not always who you think the thief is.
Yeah.
And you know, it's being, you know, vigilant. It's being out on the street day in, day out, sharing that information, and finding out the real stories where you can help some people that do it. Like, you know, the being out all night looking for the little boy. That's the second time that's happened. Yeah. You know, so and both times ended with a good resolve. So that's good. But you know, there's numerous amount of eyes out there looking for all this stuff. So you know, that's a lot of what we're trying to do is just bring awareness to it. Put more eyes on the street. And
yeah. Well, there's a couple elements there that we were talking about, especially when it comes to mental illness, and the distinction is, from my perspective, I guess, on how I would look at it, is especially on the catch and release theme, people who are, you know, doing crime is intentional and deliberate. And especially if it's a catch and release, there's a pattern there. Mm-hmm. And I think that is obviously something that needs to be addressed because it's a criminal activity. And if it's a mental issue, then releasing them back into allowing them to do something is just enabling both negative actions, but then also maybe there needs to be a different approach if there's actually a mental ability or something going on there that needs to be addressed. And all we're dealing with is reacting to symptoms instead of what the actual root cause is, as far as I see it, and putting more awareness and even a presence of, you know, people on the streets is probably just it doesn't prevent it by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, it just tries to suppress it and stifle it a little bit, as far as people wanting to just have free reign, you know, of the streets. And that's why I asked that question, though, as far as what people's response were, because I find that interesting that the knee-jerk reaction would be the vigilante and attacking the people that are trying to address obviously something that needs to be addressed in whatever form that might be, right? It doesn't have to have a negative connotation to it.
No. And I mean, we quickly realized that, you know, the people that are less fortunate and do suffer from addiction and that sort of thing, live on the street, they're not the people we have to worry about at all. We really try to help those folks out. And hat goes off to a few of the ladies in our group. They show so much compassion, and without them being part of our group, maybe we wouldn't even understand that. So they've really helped us out with that. But, you know, we find that these people committing like large scale theft and that sort of thing, they're not suffering from mental illness.
No. These
are people that have been in our community for a long time. They're typically people that have done this for a long time. And it seems like they don't have any roadblocks stopping them from doing it. So why would they? It seems to be a fairly lucrative business venture of sorts, let's say.
Well, $65,000 of items in the story you had
that was
told
one little instance, man.
Like, so are you guys connected to that one that was found by Rose Prairie? What was that, $250,000 worth of stolen items recovered?
that was you know, we've now branched out into Fort St. John, so we have a secondary group. Those guys, man, they're awesome up there. So they were in the exact same position as us, dealing with property crime and theft and that sort of thing. And it was about 3 weeks, maybe a month after we had connected with them and they started having their weekly meetings and that sort of thing, that one of their members up in John was like, hey, there's been some stuff going on in Rose Prairie and at this certain location. Like, we should go have a look. And so what happened was somebody had a truck and a sled trailer loaded with his snowmobiles stolen, right? And they took it upon themselves, like, hey, let's go check this place out. It's been very suspect for a long time. So the group heads out there, and sure enough, they took the owner of the sled trailer with them. There it is on this property. So the police were called, and just a little side note, they didn't have any clue about this property. So it was the group up north there that they had been vigilant. And they found this out. And sure enough, the police, they were able to obtain a search warrant and enter the property, and they found what they said was conservatively several $100,000 worth of stolen property. They recovered over 10 trucks there.
Wow.
Yeah. A
Several
handful of
$100,000.
tools and-
I should almost look that up.
Down here, 2 enclosed trailers, sleds. There was 3 snowmobiles, 2 quads.
2 quads on a trailer. Another truck.
Yeah.
Like, this was a several day endeavor. So like this, what we had heard was they obtained the search warrant around 4:30 in the morning, and the tow trucks didn't stop rolling until like that evening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Win, right?
Win.
Fuck, I'll cheers, yeah, even if it is coffee. I mean, that's a pretty big deal, man.
What a
I mean,
huge win. So
holy,
that
$250,000. I mean, that's a huge, and I'm using that number because that's even what was advertised in the local newspaper.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, honestly, it turned out to be a little bit more in the end, and that doesn't count. At least 15 vehicles locally here in Dawson Creek that we've helped.
We had a $250,000 night one night too, and that was it was staggering how it just kind of happened. And the police were actually high-fiving our group. Right? They were
Really?
ecstatic.
They don't talk about that, do they?
No,
and that's okay. Like,
So have you felt, I think, a positive response? Like with working with RCMP, even though let's go a little bit beyond, I guess, what the papers are depicting, though, is there a positive interaction with RCMP? Like, I mean, a high five seems like it's a pretty...
Personally, I can say yes. Yeah. Just with my experience with a few officers I know, they're thankful for the bit of help. I know that they can't come out publicly and condone everything we're doing. We like to think of ourselves as the gray area guys, right?
Yeah.
Walk up to the line, but don't cross it. That's our motto. Mm-hmm. So, I know these guys have been involved in lots of stuff, and they could speak to that as well. Yeah,
quite a few of them are really receptive to what we're doing, and they're very appreciative of it. There is a couple that they'll balk us tooth and nail, like they don't want us doing anything.
Mm-hmm. You can't win them all, or is there any like what they're saying? Like, is there any legitimacy, to the perspective or what they're saying, or is it just, I think sometimes when you deal with in a group of a crowd of people, you're just not going to please them all. You know what I mean? Or is there some and legitimate reasoning behind it? Like when they say that, what is they just kind of...
I think it just comes from not knowing exactly who and what we are, and that's part of why we're here today. Yeah. Like, we need to get the message out that we're not here to impede the RCMP. We're not here to take credit for anything that the RCMP is doing, because without them, we cannot be successful, because we do not have the jurisdiction to act and take the law into our own hands.
Our goal is to bring awareness to our situation, really, so that we can get the resources back to where we can have our, not have the property crime going on. If that can go down to a reasonable, and I don't know what that looks like, a reasonable amount, but without creating the file numbers and the statistics, they'll never increase the police force. Whether or not that's possible, even in today's day and age, with the police force, we don't know. But we gotta work with them so that we can have get them the resources.
That's it. We just need to get them the help they need right now.
Exactly, and then we'll do whatever it takes to bring awareness, and that's why we're sitting here today.
I know a few of the responses, because I've dug into this a little bit too, just in preparation. I don't think I'd be able to engage with you guys in a respectful manner if I didn't do any kind of research myself on this a little bit. And a couple of the feedback comments I've had is that it's, weirdly enough, and I don't know how accurate this might be, but just the act of actually bringing more awareness to this prevents people from wanting to move to an area because it makes it look, you know how you're talking about statistics as far as an area looking like it's safe just because of lack of phone calls. By bringing more awareness to a certain area, it almost makes it look bad when we're in an area, you know, we're kind of getting kicked quite a few different ways, whether it be oil and gas, you know, and the region and the winter, the seasons that we're dealing with, and the lack of maybe shopping amenities, like, and healthcare, we're trying to attract more people into this region. And then you put another layer of, you know, crime. It just puts a different lens on it that is making people maybe second guess whether or not they want to move to this area.
You know, like I see that, you know, what we're doing is bringing a bad light to what's going on, but we're not creating a bad light. We're just showing everybody what's going on. Awareness. And eventually, you know, like, we're trying to hold people accountable. We're trying to explain to everybody what's going on, make sure everybody knows. So, you know, this is a short-term problem. And hopefully, if we get far enough with it, everything's going to clean up. Our streets are going to clean up. We're going to have less crime. We're going to have less drugs, all that stuff. And I don't know, if I was moving to a town, I'd rather move to a town where I know the citizens there got my back and they're going to help me, rather than, you know, move to a town where, well, geez, nothing ever happens there.
Yeah.
Right?
And I mean, that's, we basically, things have to get a little bit worse before they're ever going to get better. And that's any circumstance in life.
Absolutely.
And it's not like we're the only town doing this. For instance, we're about a couple hundred members right now, right? You look at Nanaimo, they have a group that's like 4,000 members. They've actually got certain facilities downtown, you know, very similar to our BC housing project that was just built here downtown. They've got it shut down because it was deemed a nuisance property because of all the associated crime was with that property. So we're not the only ones that are doing this sort of thing. Like, we're just,
well, you're right. This is definitely not a unique issue with this region. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring that in, because when you have someone make a comment, it's nice to be able to address, acknowledge, and then have a calm rebuttal to it. And what you were talking about, Tygh, that, like, the Lower Mainland, you're hearing that even in mainstream media about, you know, Vernon, Penticton, any of the Okanagan area. This is not unique. This is the fact that the RCMP, which is a federal form of enforcement, is being, you know, they're having that problem right across the RCMP, doesn't mean that it's unique to just this region.
Nope.
no.
So that's a Canadian, that's a universal issue in no matter what town you're in, and it's just starting to boil up to the point of where groups like this now are starting to form out a necessity of one form or another in every single town. And that actually is alarming, right?
So,
because every other town has stories like what you guys were just talking about.
If I could speak to the point you made about people maybe being hesitant to move to the region because there's a problem here. Our problem is very small in the grand scheme of things. Like, we're dealing with property crime, and we're dealing with a small amount of the population who's actually causing problems. We're dealing with a small amount of you know, vulnerable people living on the street and within the shelters. We're really, on the whole, not even dealing with violent criminals in our town for the most part, right? There's the odd thing that happens, unfortunately, but you know, to put it into perspective, imagine being down in Vancouver area. Why would you ever move down there? Majority of their problems are gang related.
Yeah.
Their problems are violent crimes stemming from drug and gang, you know, activity. And they obviously have their property crime problems as well. Yeah. But our problems up here are small in comparison, you know, and, you know, but they're bad enough.
Yeah.
So
we're not dealing with the Hastings, or we're not dealing with tent cities, or we're not dealing with a lot of that, for sure. 100%.
Yeah. So I would say don't be afraid to move up here.
Awesome.
I'm raising my kids and I love it.
So. I raised our kids here too, and you know, it's a great place to live, to be from, and you know, it's the Peace Country's been home for the majority of my life, and That's why we're here together. So we want to make it better. We're talking about a small amount of individuals, and I really wish I could remember the stat that I think it was.
I think it's below 30 people.
Yeah, I was going to say it was less than 40 people created. It was like 80% of the files.
Really?
In Dawson Creek, yeah, and you'll have to fact check that one for me, because it was a when I went home and thought about that, and you putting that together, it's like, Jesus.
Yeah.
We're talking about 40 people out of 12,000
that are creating majority of the calls, and they're being released. They're being let back out.
Repeat offenders.
Do the crime. The police do their job. They arrest them, and then it's our provincial government and Crown Council that lets them go.
Less than an hour. In less than an hour from the time that they hit the RCMP, they're back out.
Wow.
And to do it again. And
There's no consequences.
No, there isn't. Not with that.
We witnessed one guy steal 3 vehicles in one night.
Did you?
Yeah.
Jesus.
At one point last summer, there was 2-3 vehicles a night getting stolen.
Wow, that's concerning. And we're talking big ticket items. In Fort St. John, they just had a stolen truck go in, and where was that? It was a bunch of sleds they loaded up, and then ended up hitting the road. So we're talking huge, like over $100,000 just in one hit.
$20,000 a piece. Those new
plus
sleds.
the trucks are $100,000, and then it was tooled up, and it was a stolen truck, a stolen trailer. They went and they loaded a bunch of other stuff, gear and everything else, and you're rolling out of town at almost a couple $100,000 just in equipment right there. I mean, that's
the worst part about that is that affects every single person in this province who pays insurance.
Yeah.
So if you think our premiums are going to go down by allowing these people to just take it, and we go claim insurance and say, oh, well, it's what's done is done now, that affects every single person here. We wonder why ICBC numbers are through the roof right now.
For sure.
That's because no one's being checked.
Yeah.
Criminals certainly don't feel afraid to go steal something, clearly.
They break into your garage, they take whatever tools they take, and they walk out of there. You're not doing a house insurance claim because that'll hit you hard in the pocketbook. Mm-hmm. So you're being hit hard once, or you're being hit hard over a long-term thing, right? This just isn't, money is tight these days for so many people, and to see this happen over and over and over, you have to stop and take stock.
Just for instance, we know a local mechanic who's had his shop broken into. It's like close to 30 times, and he's claims that it's over $300,000 worth of loss. You can watch it right on City Council.
Yeah, he sat there and listed it.
Wow.
And of equipment gone and vehicles.
Well, just last week they backed a pickup through the mall doors and loaded up 2 bank machines and took off.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember backcountry got hit a couple of times. They drove right in through the front door with a vehicle, drove around in the store with the vehicle, loaded up all those firearms and gear and everything else, drove back out and pretty much got away. That's why they've got cement barriers and all of those. They kicked up security in a big way, because that was 2 times they got hit. The vehicle. And then I remember at the mall in Fort St. John, they did that too. So my stories stem a little bit more from John, because that's kind of where we default come from. But same exact stories. I remember the jewelry store. They drove right through the mall, right into a jewelry store, cleaned house in the mall, turned around, hitting all the kiosks and everything else, drove right back out again. And that's why you see all the cement pillars now in front of every entrance.
Those are people with zero fear of any repercussion of the law.
Yeah. I'd like to touch on a little bit. So we were kind of at a story about City Council and your guys' presentation when it comes to that. And I want to try and actually touch on the political end of things a little bit too, and fill out that story a little bit. But also the fact that down in Taylor, they did have, the end of January, I believe they had Dan Davies and an RCMP constable or sergeant or whatever, they had a meeting specifically talking about crime. And also in South Peace here, your group was able to generate 3,000 signatures that Mike Bernier,
Absolutely,
MLA, brought to the Legislative Assembly. Yeah. And I'm going to just play that video here just to show, I guess, the support. And the reason I want to highlight, you know, the MLAs a little bit is because even though there has been, you know, this perception, the vigilante term and the stigma that goes along with it, at least there's an effort on the political spectrum of acknowledgement and some form of something being done about it. And then we can really get into this a little bit deeper too on that. But I'll play this this video for everybody. Which one was that? It was on my Facebook. Let's press play.
Member for Peace River South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in the House to present a petition of over 3,000 signatures collected by the concerned citizens for crime prevention of Dawson Creek. Petitioners are respectfully requesting that the Honourable House and Minister reform the catch and release program that is currently being enforced by this government and provide more resources and direction for RCMP and Crown prosecutors to charge and convict repeat offenders. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Peace River South.
So there you go.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to say thanks to Mike for doing that. He actually came out to one of our meetings, showed support for what we're doing, realizes we're not out there to make the problem worse. And he drafted that petition for us so that it would be legally acceptable.
Presented in the proper way.
Be able to
And
be
this is
used.
part of that political
Exactly.
movement that we're trying to extend daily here, and that is, you know, let's do it right. Let's get the people that we need in front of us, and we've gained support. Just, you know, so it's kind of heartwarming just to see some of the people, because we have been labeled vigilante and heard all these horror stories, to actually having MLAs sit in our forum and say, okay, guys, this is the right way to do this.
Give a little bit of guidance and something to do to be able to put some of that information together, because 3,000 signatures is, I think, a whole lot more than what your guys' group represents. I don't know what your membership or head count is like, but obviously the 3,000 signatures is representing Dawson Creek a whole lot more than what just that Citizens for Action group is
just about 30% of Dawson Creek, and I would say 90% of those signatures came like directly from in town.
The funny thing is that I got a kick out of is that more people signed that petition than voted for.
So I was actually going to say that because I was going to mention eligible voters and I didn't know what the stat was, but how many people voted?
It was less than 25%, and we had over 25% sign that petition.
Oh, so, wow!
You know,
they said usually a real great petition would see, around 10 to 12% of the population sign it, and we were just pushing 30% there.
Wow. Well, should we cheers to some freaking coffee again? Eh?
Yeah.
That's a big win. You know what I mean? That is that's worth highlighting a little bit.
Yep.
Have you seen anything more than that? Like, have you seen perceptions soften a little bit? As time has gone by.
Somewhat, yeah. So we were recently approached by the mayor and some of the city staff and the PRRD. Is he a CAO, Sean Dolan?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so they sat with us and we're working towards some sort of resolution, right? They're willing to listen to our ideas. And at the end of the day, we all live in this community. We all want the best for the community and for our kids and for the safety of everybody and people to have that nice fuzzy feeling that they can go to bed without worrying if their property is going to be gone in the morning. So they were fairly receptive. I was with that delegation, and we sat down and had a really constructive conversation. So we're hoping that this leads to some long lasting change, you know, and if it has to start on, you know, ground level here, municipal level. And what's happening is we've now got that to the provincial level. We've been recognized provincially. And
How
apparently
so?
this
What acknowledgement for provincial?
with that petition. Mike
I see. Okay.
Mike used the wrong name. He called us something else, but that's fine. Like, we, at the end of the day, I don't care about taking any credit for anything that's been done. I just would love to see long lasting change in a positive manner.
You know, we talked to, we went to city council on the second one, and there was 10 of us, made a quick 1 minute just to identify how the issue in our community is real. 10 people did 1 minute sessions on how the crime has affected their business and their thing, and that, you know, we're tax paying people in here. We're not just run of the mill people. We're just trying to, you know, do work, do business, and support our own community. And it did soften the council on the second one. They did make a call to Nikki Sharma and say, we wanted to have you in our council meeting to have that. Now, she did. They did reach out to the Attorney General. The Attorney General did.
Susan Anton?
No, that was Nikki Sharma.
Nikki Sharma.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and but they kind of died out there. It kind of she made her presentation at City Council the following week, or 2 weeks later, whatever it was. But it kind of just died out. It wasn't, you know, the City Council hadn't followed up on it, I think. And, you know, we all live in a busy world, so I know everything, you know, can get forgotten. So we've asked once again we would like some answers, you know, some specific questions, and you know, we'll just see how that's going. But we actually had some of the councillors make that request, and
it was refreshing to see. It was a far cry from our first experience with City Council.
Yep.
Well, you know, it goes without saying that anybody who has got any kind of form of success, especially when it comes to business, realizes that all the hard work of any project's at the very beginning. And so persistence usually pays off in the long run. And the fact that you guys have been able to approach this, and right from the beginning, you know, like what you guys were highlighting was the fact that one of the first steps or action items, I guess, so to speak, was going and trying to approach, you know, civil representation. So city council, and that is starting to work and take a little bit of notice. And it's having some legitimacy because these are eligible, positively engaged citizens within your community that have, I think, a real concern, and trying to be able to navigate through those waters that are outside of your guys' normal daily scope of operation. I mean, you got to engage politics, and now you're entering into a world that is very unknown. Like, I mean, constituents, is that word used anything outside of politics? Like, what the hell? You know how long it took me to figure out what that even meant? It's like, oh, I'm a constituent? Oh, you know, I mean, so there is a learning curve that goes with something like that, and the persistence and the ability to be able to navigate through those waters is because you guys are trying to stay within the realm of, you know, something that's going to have a long-lasting effect and address a concern that's going to have a positive outcome within your own community at the end of the day. So to continue on, though, because I don't want to lose that political end of it, and the reason I thought that Susan Anton was the person you were representing is because there's another news article from December 5th, 2022, where the Dawson Creek City Council brought in Attorney General Susan Anton. Was that with you guys now, or is that?
I think Nikki Sharma's recently elected, isn't she?
Yes.
Actually, here I have. You could just see where
Google
this is
that
coming
to
from.
verify, but I'm pretty sure Nikki Sharma's the newly elected Attorney General.
This one here. I got to make sure. There's too many buttons here. There we go. Dawson Creek City Council calling for help from Attorney General after concerned citizens urge action on property crime. And then if you scroll down, I believe you guys Citizens Take Action was named here. And a letter asking counsel for crime prevention unit in Dawson Creek. They say the idea was suggested to them by RCMP. Several members of the group also recounted incidents in which their property was stolen. The group says they formed in response to the rise in local property crime. They previously appeared before City Council on November 21st and presented a letter which read, "We feel we have no choice but to take it upon ourselves and actively try to stop crime in our community." Oh, so this is probably where that whole vigilante part kind of comes in, but this is also okay. So
we had gotten the vigilante name.
Yeah,
long
we had
before
that right from the start. And honestly, there was people in town that had taken, let's say, the law into their own hands prior to us ever becoming a group, and they. It seemed like they continued to do things because we would hear stories like, "Oh, this person was assaulted" or whatever may have happened, and nobody in our group was like, "Well, what? I had nothing to do with that," and we're being labeled by a group of people who have taken it upon themselves to do things like that. That's never been our approach. So it almost seemed like there was 2 or 3 sort of
I've talked to people that
parallel groups.
I mean, I've sat at City Council. My name is out there, and so when I've talked to people, I'm standing at Northern Metallic, and the guy says, "Oh, you're one of them, part of your vigilante group. How's that going?" Kind of chuckle, and I'm like, you'd be an asset to come and flat out tell you, "No way, I'll deal with my stuff my way." And it's like, okay, that's fine. I support your opinion, and you do things your way. At my stage in my life, I'm not interested in that. And
people who respond to that, do they have a better way of approaching it, or do they dismiss it as it's not an issue at all to begin with? Like what's
no, they understand there's a problem, but they feel our approach may not be.
It's a little too soft for them.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I see.
I get it.
Okay.
So and that's where you don't try and convince that person as to to come into our fold. You have to do you. If you want to join this group and follow with us, everybody, we have such a vast array of different people and personalities in here. I've met so many people through this group. And you start to see where the ideas come from, and each person has their own story why they're sitting with us, but everybody brings a different thing, and these ideas come in. And, about, let's go and let's do this walk during the day and hand out gloves and toques and blankets and stuff like that. I sat back and listened to that, and I thought, I don't know how that I don't know how that is part of this. But it really was, it wasn't something that I thought of. And so they went out, and then all of a sudden I'm joining them and hearing these stories. And you kind of, I've learned so much, that, appearances are only skin deep, really, and that everybody has a story. So we're not, that person that's out there dealing with their situation in their way and us dealing with it in our way, they're two different things. But ultimately, everybody wants that same goal. And, I can't support or condone anything outside of the law like that. Each person has to make their own decision. This is the decision I made to stand here, sit in front of City Council, join you, Kevin. It's been a pleasure. To talk about the issues in our community and get to some sort of resolve. So we learn every day, and we're just keep trying to do this.
Yeah. What is some of we talked about some of the success stories as far as people that have been missing were found. We've got a couple huge, I think, success stories when it comes to recovering stolen items. has there been different focal points that has kind of been, I don't want to say rejuvenating, but like huge milestones of like success where you're like, yeah, you know, that was a good one. And it's something that's kind of helped motivate and propel things for, you know, and to keep going. Or has it just been something, this is where now, you know, the end game, the long game of trying to, you know, get more involved and incorporated with the local community or RCMP and politics and whatnot to try and bring people a little bit more together on a common goal. What is the feel like as far as the group is concerned?
Basically, like we have wins pretty much every month. You know, like it started out, our very first one was the Owl Heart. You know, then it was, you know, once we had finally figured out how to get in, approach city council and talk to them and have city council actually acknowledge we had a problem and brought in Nikki Sharma. That was a win. We considered that a win. You know, having Mike Bernier show up and help us with that petition, and the petition getting to the legislation. You know, we consider that a win. You know, setting up this group and helping set up the same group in Fort St. John. For us, that's a win, because now we're not just helping out our community. We're helping out the other communities as well. We had the choice when we started this group. We could have stayed in the back shadows and not said nothing. Mm-hmm. As a group, we decided, you know what, we're going to be better off if we can. We're only going to make real change if we're vocal, and we can get this to a political level. So then, you know, like we started growing more members. We had more people explain to us, okay, well, go take this avenue, take that avenue. You know, that's all a win. You know, just seeing the change. Like, we've seen a huge change in Dawson Creek as far as crime and stuff goes. Some of that's due to the fact that it's wintertime. Some of these guys, criminals' vehicles don't start, and it's cold outside, and they just want to sit on the couch or whatever. But, you know, like even our last meeting with the city council when we met with the mayor and we met with the PRRD, just hearing from Sean Dolan, like he's going to have another meeting with Nikki Sharma, and he's got a delegation
and Mike Farnsworth
and Mike Farnsworth, and they've got a delegation that's going to go down to that, and actually seeing how they actually sat there and they took in what we told them. We can tell that there are some that actually think, hey, like these guys have some good ideas. Like Nikki Sharma said that there's extra funding because for the northern rural communities, right? So rather than, like, we had a CPU unit in town, crime prevention unit, but that was made up from taking 2 members from this detachment, 2 members from that detachment, 1 from over here, 2 from over there. And it's great having that traveling CPU going from town to town, but it sucks because now that detachment's down 2 more officers, that detachment's down. So we said, okay, well, if extra funding is available, rather than, you know, Dawson Creek take the extra funding and get a couple extra officers, see if you can get them to put together a CPU unit that's not made up of just people from this detachment and that detachment. So now we've got a full unit. That's all they do. They're, you know, 6-8 people, because the harder we push against crime here, the more they get hit in Fort St. John. The harder Fort St. John hits, the more it goes to Chetwynd. So now you've got this group, you know, they'll be in Dawson for a month helping us out. They'll be in Fort St. John for a month helping them out. They'll be down in Chetwynd, right? And the biggest thing is just realizing that now we're actually being seen as that tool, right? That tool that they can use, right? We'll phone and we'll report something. And then the cops will tell you, if you see anything else, keep an eye on this, keep an eye on that. If you see it, phone us right away. There's 2 or 3 cops. The guys actually have their numbers. You know, okay, you see something, let me know right away. Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, we're being taken serious, and people realize that we're not here to hinder them. We're here to help them. So
it's now part of their resources. Well, that's good.
Hopefully, that's ultimately our you know, you spoke to what would be our long-term goals. We would like to see this group be a real tool that's utilized regularly by the RCMP. We have over right now 200 sets of eyes and ears out there watching stuff, you know, like like you said earlier, Steve, why would you do a job with a hand tool like a ratchet when you've got an impact gun?
Yeah.
Like utilize us. And we would also obviously like to see systemic change right from the very top down. That would be our ultimate long-term goal, is that people know that if somebody is committing violent crime, property crime, whatever type of crime it may be, that they're being dealt with accordingly, and that they're not able to just continually get away with all of this criminal activity, without any repercussion. Like one of the stats, for instance, right now is, I don't know if it's, someone will have to look into this, but if it's provincially or Dawson Creek alone, there's $4.5 million of unpaid fines owed to the government from criminal activity. Now that could be,
I wonder if I can bring that up.
I think Mike said that was Dawson Creek alone, and that's fine.
Yeah, Mr. Bernier was the one that actually told us that. So what a number.
Yeah, and that's fine. So like when you go to court, you get charged for $1,000 in lieu of, right? $500 in lieu of, and that's up over $4 million.
Yeah. So if we could see
police force for a year,
absolutely. If we could see those fines being paid, there's a win.
Yeah.
That's a goal for us. If Joe Blow gets to go to bed and know that his truck's going to be there in the morning so he can go to work, that's a win. Yeah. If we can go out and help on, these cold nights and help our vulnerable people in the community, make it through another day and maybe feel a little bit safer, that's a win. We have we're not just, people out here to, just stop crime. No, we want to help the community.
We're not wearing capes.
No, we've become so community oriented just through the vast number of people and diversity in our group that our whole outlook has kind of evolved right from the very start. At the very start, stop crime. Do whatever you have to do to make sure crime doesn't happen. And then the next goal is help the police stop crime. Then it kind of evolved into, let's see if we can get the whole province to be able to cut down on crime. And it's just evolving. And I don't see why this would stop. There's talks of hopefully speaking with Bob Zimmer. And I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure he brought up some of these problems in federal groups now.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, so that's what I heard recently.
So
I hope that's the truth.
Basically, I guess from what you were saying is, it sounds like you want to be able to figure out what template that works, that's acceptable, that's going to be allowed to be able to not only be approved out way approach on it all that you can use in Dawson Creek for St. John provincially, and now even kind of go over federally, much like back in the day I was talking about Neighborhood Watch, or what was the other one?
Block
Watch and
Block
Parent.
Watch, yeah. All those other ones. I think there was something that was What was Cops? What was
Cops
What was
is
Cops?
and it's
Yeah,
an
let's
active
speak
thing.
to Cops, yeah.
In the community, they've revived it.
It's an
Cops
acronym for Citizens on Patrol
Yeah.
Society.
Yeah.
Okay. So, that's active? I should actually look that up.
They're trying to actually bring it back. So it was active, 20 years ago? I don't know for how long it was. There's an ex-RCMP officer who's trying to head man it. But we've been asked several times over the past few months, why don't you just align with the COPS program? And our answer every single time is, because we'll never get anything done. So the problem is you have to really align with the structure, and they tell you what you can do or what you can't do, and you're just strictly there to patrol, observe, and that's it. And it's not unlike what we're already doing. It's like we're already doing this, but we have also this added value, this added value, this added value. We don't have a fee to pay. Our members don't pay a fee, this sort of thing, right? Like we know the law. We know the lines we can't cross. We've actually spoke to a lawyer about it. We feel we would gain nothing but only lose if we were to join.
So it's an
COPS
outdated
program.
system that's stifling, and this is something that's kind of you're
how much
remolding, I
technology
think, an
has
approach.
changed
Yeah,
in
that's
20
true.
years.
And that's the thing, like the COPS program, I don't know when it came out, 20, 30 years ago. That's what the cops program is based on, is a 20, 30-year-old program. I brought up, I actually went to a couple of the cops meetings just to, see what it was all about, see what they were doing. And I asked them if they could run plates, and nope, that's for the cops to do. The cops are the only ones that can do it. We've actually there's actually a legal program where you can check a plate and see if that plate's active, or a VIN number.
Oh, really?
Right? And you can take that, and it's legal. Anybody can use it. You can run a VIN number through it, and it'll tell you if that vehicle's stolen.
What?
Yeah, and that we use that software, or that
it's an
program.
App, or what do you say?
It's a
website.
It's a website, and we use that when up in that stuff in Fort St. John as well. And you see a vehicle parked in a parking lot. It's a public place. You can walk up, snap a picture of the VIN number, and run it through there and see if it's stolen.
An abandoned vehicle on a back road that's just randomly there for no reason.
That's cool to know.
We do support the cops.
We even
sponsored a car.
sponsored $1,000 for one of their cars.
Yeah.
Really?
So one of the vehicles that patrol in their group is sponsored by Citizens Take Action. Now, I got to say this publicly, that we have never once received any recognition from that.
Yeah.
And, I guess that's okay, but I know that when the Chamber of Commerce threw in $1,000, it made headline news, right?
Yeah.
So, and that is what it is. Now, I'm still a little bit sour about that.
Chamber of Commerce made a contribution to cops.
Yeah, they sponsored one of the
so
other vehicles.
did cops? You said I thought cops was scrapped. To be honest with you, I didn't even know that was a thing still. Oh, okay. So was it resurrected because of?
Kind of when we came to light, they were sort of trying to get it fired.
I should look that up.
A couple months after we started.
Before I do that, to touch just on that last part there, I'm gonna show what you were talking about there, unpaid tickets. I'm not gonna go in the link, but it says January 13, 2023, that just in Dawson Creek, there was close to $4 million in unpaid fines from criminals. Said Bernier. So right there, like, just to I wanted to make sure we put that one to bed.
But I just paid my speeding ticket.
Yeah.
Cops. And while I'm looking up that, I got a story. I got a couple, but I got a story that goes to the speeding ticket thing. I was in Alberta, and I had to go to work, and it was in Rainbow Lake, which is in the middle of freaking nowhere. That whole town is pretty much a stop sign. And I rolled into town, and it was like midnight, and it was a rolling stop. I mean, you can see usually, honestly, I didn't come to a complete stop, but someone was in a kitty corner for me, Greg's Distributors. There was a rent-a-cop, and he had lights on. He pulled me over, gave me a ticket for his $100 or whatever. And, admittedly, I was like, what the hell is this? I was a little agitated over the fact that he was stopping me in the middle of nowhere for a rolling stop. Ignored it, and about 6 years later, I went to Mexico, and I was coming back, and I got pulled over into secondary, and I was like, "What is going on?" I'm like, racking my brain. They called me up because I didn't know what was really going on at the time. I was there with the family. We all kind of got up. We were gonna go see what was going on. They singled me out. I had to go into whatever and how they interrogate you, and said, well, we've got a warrant for your arrest. And I'm like, no way. Like, there's identity fraud going on here. Something's going on. You got the wrong guy. It turned out to end up being, I guess, that ticket. They just said, look, we're going to let you go, but you got to make sure you pay this, and you got to go on the Alberta website, government provincial website, pay the ticket, because that ticket that was issued to me got submitted to the RCMP, and because the RCMP is federal, when I come back, it just came up in their system. So I was like, well, here you go. I'll just pay it right now. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you got me. But they couldn't do that. And I make a long story short, it was over an unpaid ticket, and you can't really, it does catch up to you after a while over something that small.
So that's the difference between Alberta and British Columbia. So right now, you're not made to pay fines. In Alberta, they'll put out a warrant for your arrest. It could be a speeding ticket. and they will enforce it. They do not do that in British Columbia, and that's why there's $4.5 million or
there's
whatever.
a big difference there.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, here's another story then, which is still ongoing. And I'll tell this story just because I would like to start it out with the fact that I've always had and still do have a respect for RCMP and cops in general, even though I've had some scenarios where I think it's been manipulated, and I can see why people might have disdain towards cops. But I was in Fort St. John, came home. My wife had to pick up some stuff or whatever. We had 2 vehicles in town. Had to work the next day, went to bed. Wife ended up coming home a couple hours behind me or hour behind me or whatever. A couple more hours later had gone by. I woke up to a bunch of noise outside our place. I look outside, there's 2 cop cruisers sitting there. What the hell's going on? Walk outside, I'm in my boxers, and there's an RCMP officer in my mudroom, and my wife is in her freaking house coat or whatever. And I'm like, what's going on? And they said, well, we're here to arrest well, they didn't say wife, but this pretty much my wife. And she's trying to find ID. And I'm like, what for? And they said, evading the police. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, I mean, come on now. Like, evade him where? She's wearing a house coat. So I guess, he wanted ID, and her ID was in the living room, and she went to go get it. And he followed her right on her ass, and I followed, and we looked like a little train of people. And I'm just shocked. I'm not really sure how to react. And I'm starting to get a little bit agitated, but I'm trying to get an idea of what's going on. And my wife kind of walked around me, and he followed her right around and back to the mudroom. And I was like, okay, enough. Like, you're in my house, and she's evading police. You got to elaborate here, because, and I was getting a little agitated over it. And that's when he said, well, she'll have to tell you the story. And they took her outside to the second cruiser and asked me to stay at the front porch or whatever. And I watched them kind of do their thing, and they ended up giving her a ticket because she was cooperating. And then they ended up leaving, and I'm like, well, what the hell was that all about? And I guess her story, and I got to say, I fucking 100% believe her on this, is she's going through Taylor. A vehicle had gone by, however fast, blew by her. RCMP came in behind her, flicked their lights on, and then turned it off. And she took it like, okay, you're speeding. And a lot of times they'll give you a warning if you're speeding, just to slow down. So she adjusted her speed or whatever and kept on driving and didn't think it was an issue because he had turned his lights off and pulled off or whatever have you. She come home, had enough time to be able to relax, change into her house coat. They accused her of evading the police and came in with the second cruiser. So now we've gotten finally a court date because we challenged that. And I was a little bit agitated over that because I was like, man, goodness, like we're actually law-abiding citizens that don't have a record that go through all of this whole process. And I have to deal with an accusation that, we believe to be completely false. There's no advantage in being able to evade the police where we live. No. I mean, and they have access to obviously all of our records through her license plate and whatever have you. So, when you get into the defund the police because they're being portrayed as a bunch of assholes and everything else, I can see maybe where now we need to put things into perspective and see maybe where his point of view was. That vehicle that had blown past my wife probably was someone they were pursuing. Was there a mistaken identity? I don't know. Was he having a bad day? Was he like all these variables? I will give him the benefit of a doubt. The experience we had can't be taken away from that though. So these are things that I could see where people might be like, what the hell's going on? The police are picking on the wrong people. And I can make an argument to maybe, one way or to the other. I would like to stress though that, those experiences I don't think are far and few between. I've always said that if the police are banging on my doors, it's because of a good reason. I've never in my life ever had someone come in because of that. They have to come in with just cause and due reason. So obviously I'm not living my life, them causing them issues up to that one point. But having said that, I do think that these people, going back to our conversation earlier, need to see the support of their citizens. And I do believe that we've gotten down to a society that has gotten so fractured that all you're seeing is animosity in one form or another.
Yep.
And that's probably a lot of what you guys are seeing, even though there's good intentions. And the RCMP probably are getting a lot of animosity, even though there's good intentions. And there's all these little fractures with healthcare. And I mean, we can go through the whole list of endless different topics, right? I mean, I don't think we'll run of a shortage of that. How do we overcome that so that we can actually come together a little bit? And I think the support when it comes to the RCMP, and, you know, I have my own issues with government. But the reason why I wanted to bring, you know, Mike Bernier and Dan Davies and maybe these stories that we're using as illustrations, we got to bridge all those connections, because at the end of the day, that makes up our community. And how you go about actually bringing that together is going to end up being the power and the strength that's going to be able to get us to a community where we can be proud and be attractive to a lot of people that are going to want to migrate, move, or make a life and raise a family in this area. How you tackle that, I mean, I hope you guys can let me know. But I will say that whatever you guys are doing as a group, with some of the hurdles that you have gone through and what I've heard, and especially with what we have talked about so far, there is traction being made.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a good thing, you know, and I'm hoping that, you know, we can have maybe more than one discussion, or we've elaborated, I think, what this group is all about in a way to where now more awareness and conversation is taking place to be able to address some of these issues that we're having. Yeah. Because without that, we're screwed, really.
No,
I mean, we need to be able to break down those barriers.
I think that, you know, it's more of a young person thing or whatever. If you oppose the police, it's typically because you're breaking the law.
Yeah.
You know, that's been my experience my whole life. I was taught my whole life, you respect the police. They're here to help. You know, they're good people. And I've always kind of lived with that. You know, I'll always have that feeling. They do a job that I could not do, you know, so my hat goes off to them. I couldn't go and deal with, you know, the when they have to go to an accident on the highway and somebody's, you know, deceased or whatever. Like, that's tough, you know. And then on top of that, they have to deal with calls about domestic abuse, and they have to go and deal with calls from us regarding property crime. They have to then go deal with an overdose. This could all be in the same shift.
Yeah.
You know, so my hat has always gone off to the police, and I have respect for the police, and I'll always hold that value, because I'm very much like yourself. I don't break the law, so I don't have problems with the law, you know, but the people that do, they're typically not very, you know, they don't, let's say, hold the most wholesome values. So this whole thing with, you know, defund the police and whatever, that's crazy. Guess what? You don't need the police until you need the police.
Well, exactly. Yeah. You better be careful what you wish for.
When you get in a car accident on the highway and that officer is helping extract you from your vehicle that's going to light on fire, you're probably going to be pretty thankful, aren't you?
Yeah.
You know, if someone breaks into your house and they come and they help you get rid of that person and potentially recover your stuff, you're probably going to be pretty thankful. So at the end of the day, you know, us as Citizens Take Action Group, we quickly realized that without the police, we can't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
I don't have the authority to enter somebody's property and take something back, you know, or go and deal with a criminal, you know, in hand-to-hand, whatever. You know, I can't do that. That's going to be the responsibility of the police, and that's why we need to give them as much help as possible. We need to advocate for more positions. We need to have more police, if anything. You know, and we, you know, just I can only speak to it personally, but I always respect the police, and I'm very much like you. So we need to get away from the stigma of defunding the police is going to cause or solve our problems. What's it going to solve? It's going to create a lawless society. Yeah. And the problem's bad now.
And I think to speak a little bit to the group too, and the reason why I touched on fracturing is because instead of stereotyping the group in itself and saying that they're a bunch of vigilantes that are up to no good, maybe instead of stereotyping the group, look a little deeper as to what the motives and the whole intention of it all is. Yeah. You know, and I think that's what I was really kind of hoping And I'm thankful you guys came on to tell your side of the story, because without the ability to be able to tell it in long form, in your opinion, then that's going to just add to the divisive nature. We have enough of that. I mean, we can break everything down into little microbites, right? So that isn't working.
No, and I think that speaks to your other part of that question was, how do we get rid of these stigmas? Well, transparency.
Yeah.
I would suggest, the RCMP go on and tell their side of the story. You'd be
100%.
probably amazed what they deal with on a day-to-day.
But their hands are tied a little bit. I have tried. Believe me, I have tried. But they have a media person. They have all these roadblocks too. And like I said earlier, it seems like erosion by design. There's nothing that you can do to be able to get, when you're in a public service position, whether it's a teacher or anything like that, your hands are tied. People are very, very apprehensive. As an example, your group, is there a little bit of the hesitation? Maybe, okay, a podcast, is that good? Maybe a new member, is this everything has to be measured. Everything has to be, you never really know exactly what the true intentions of anything is. And so that's where they come from.
Much the truth. We had lots of discussions. Some people totally didn't agree with doing the podcast. And others thought, well, go ahead and do it. It's not going to accomplish anything. And others, that's the beauty of having all these different personalities there, is that you hash this stuff out and figure out the best possible outcome. And then we went forward with it.
Absolutely.
We talk this strategy that comes out from different people of different views. And the strategy goes so many different directions, and some you kind of got to take home and chew on for a week and then come back and say, boy, that might be good in a month or two, because this group has really exploded. I mean, for about 3 of our, say, 5 months, 6 months here now, we really truly felt like we were holding on to the dog's tail here. It was, well, why aren't you guys doing that? And we're sitting there like, we had a hard time setting up this meeting tonight. How we can't go forward when, and so it really is. It's such an evolving thing that we just keep trying. And we've got some super great people in this group. From writing letters, that's one thing, sending emails to pertinent people and trying to wait for a response. So many times we don't get a response. It's not discouraging. It just means we got to do some other thing, continue to do this, do more, have meetings with different groups and people. There's a continually evolving thing that, I'd like to tell you where we'll be in 2 months, but I'm not sure where we're going to be in 2 weeks.
It's so fluid. It's so dynamic.
So when you're saying that, though, do you mean that as a group within Dawson Creek, or what are you trying to reference? Like the group is a very sensitive area as far as maintaining a group in itself? Or?
No, it just, how big the group's going to be in a couple months. Which direction
are we going?
Yeah, where's the group going to get to in 2-3 months, right? Because
you know what would be kind of cool? Instead of you aligning yourself with cops, maybe you find out what that's going to take for cops to maybe align and combine resources. I mean, that would be bridging another fraction where there's got to be some form of alignment, and I don't know what that looks
this
like.
This has been discussed. Like, we're kind of talking about what's the next step, and is there the potential that we could become a nonprofit so that we could be recognized, with other agencies and that sort of thing, and really show some legitimacy.
One of the things that's really one of my friends is part of COPS, and I've looked at their apps and their technology, and I gotta say, when you got the group of people that we have, the tech that we have in today's world, boy, there's some super smart people out there. I like new technology. I'd love to follow it and stuff like that, but once again, you can't keep up with it. So our tech that we have, when we are out doing a patrol or an evening or something comes up, man, oh man, it's crazy. I won't, if I get busy during the day, I won't look at my phone. I'll go home. There'll be 245 messages. And I'm sitting there looking
How
at
do you
it.
manage that? Like, that's almost where
It's
how do you
tough.
process through all of that information?
You just try to stay up to date.
You gotta
with as
delegate
best
it,
you
eh?
can. Sometimes you can't because
We-
you're busy with your work. or
Yeah,
whatever.
we've got a lady. She's actually got 2 jobs. Plus, she's the one that sets up our Signal app, and on our Signal app, we've got like 7 different rooms for different stuff, and she keeps up. And every one of those rooms is always evolving. She's adding more people. She's moving people from this room to that room to do that. Like she literally probably spends 4 or 5 hours a day just dealing with that stuff on top of the 2 jobs she's got already, right? So.
And she's
Resources,
not the only one
eh?
putting
Yes.
that kind of time in.
That's why I think it would be nice to be able to evolve into something where I think longevity is just being able to manage it and have that structure. I mean, any business, like you guys would know, is only going to evolve when you've got, I think, a structure of some kind of organization to be able to manage it, or it's just it falls underneath its own weight. Eh?
Yeah. So one of the things from our group that, in the short period of time and the small amount of members it is, we're not the first one to have a group in a community like this, obviously. I mean, they got big groups out there. But these groups have been in touch with us, and they're the ones that have reached out and say, boy, what you guys have done in this short period of time is staggering. We haven't accomplished this. This is our accomplishment, but oh my God, you guys have done this. So we've been able to network with them and find out some of the stuff that they have so that we're not making the mistakes that they made. And we go through this and we're finding day by day, one of our members is in Nanaimo today, with the incident that happened there. So he took the time to hop on a plane and get there, to support them. And, that was no little feat to, in 2 days, just drop everything.
No, that's a pretty big deal, especially
Right.
with everybody's schedule. You talk to anybody, and it's just always seems to be.
And I seen the email from a lady in Nanaimo, and
What is that incident? Do you mind me asking? Or do we want to elaborate on that? Or
One of the
It was in the news.
Yeah, one of the business owners there went to get his stuff back and he ended up getting shot 3 times in the stomach.
Whoa! What?
So-
Yeah, so he entered
Whoa.
like an encampment in downtown Nanaimo where there was these, questionable people living there, and he located his stolen stuff. He was a mechanic, located his tools, went to get him back, got shot 3 times. He's in critical condition. He has to now undergo a multitude of, surgery and that sort of thing. So we went down there to show our support to him because we have been in contact with that group, like Kirk said, and we try to align with them. So
That's probably, I think that's good. We bring that up a little bit because we should touch on that a little bit. I guess as far as public, I don't think by addressing this we would be kind of covering, I think, all aspects. Public safety, that I think probably is the vigilante, and what that's supposed to imply is maybe hindering or sacrificing public safety and being able to justify that for the greater good, so to speak. That I'm sure has to be a bit of an element to I think maybe people's commentary towards the group.
absolutely, it's an element. And like Kirk said, we align ourselves with safety. So what happened down there, because maybe they don't have the same structure we have and the same sort of rule package that we have put out to our group, someone took it upon themselves to go in and deal with the situation on his own accord, and it turned out bad. And that's why we cannot condone that sort of thing, right? Like, that's why we don't go and enter certain situations in fear of potentially having something like that happen and risking the safety of one of our members and the public.
Yeah.
And
can't do it.
if we, say I was to I found out my stuff is here. All my tools are here. I'm not gonna go in on my own. I'm gonna put a message on the Signal app. Hey, I found my stuff. All within 10, 15 minutes, I'm going to have 20 people there, and we're going to keep an eye on it. We're not going to go in and get it ourselves. We're going to keep an eye on it until it's safe, till the cops are there, right? Then I'm there. I can identify it. Or if you got the property owner's permission to go on the property and go in and check it out, then we'll go in and check it out.
And that's what happened up in Fort St. John, I guess. Just for reference, was we actually reached out to the property owner, found out there was squatters on his property, and that were stashing that stuff.
Oh, in Rose Prairie you're talking about?
So we reached out to the property owner. He gave us permission to go there and start dealing with that.
What a hell of a thing to navigate through.
It's crazy.
Like, I bet you that learning curve is wild, eh?
And that's our biggest thing, like with, setting this group up in Fort St. John. The group's theirs to run how they want. We're just here to, lend assistance and show them, okay, well, this is what we do. And okay, we went down this road on our own and this is what happened, right? So don't do that. If you want to make some waves and you want to get noticed, you go this way, right? And you talk to this person and you do that. And it's become a big network of, like us here in Dawson, them in Fort St. John, Penticton, Nanaimo, all over, talking to people and, trading stories and saying, okay, well, we did this, and they'll say, okay, well, we did this. And now you get together and, you stop some of that, 3 steps forward, 4 steps back type thing, right? Because when we first started, there was a lot of back and forth. You make 2 steps forward and we're going back 12, and then we'd start all over again, right? But it's every time you start out, it's tough.
Yeah. No, for sure. We've been going for a little while here. There are, I think, other topics I would like to touch on, but I think we've laid a decent amount of groundwork here. And I think what I'd like to do moving forward is, because this is already, we're a little over 2 hours here. I started this one late, but I got the full recording, by the way. Is why don't we just kind of make sure that we touched, I'll just get everyone's opinion, make sure we touched on everything that we'd like to now. And then when it comes to, I think, other topics that are going to probably be like worth a whole nother episode, we can maybe plan a revisit and touch on some other stuff I know we're probably wanting to touch on when it comes to, importing more people from other areas and some of these safe injection sites and maybe trends and like all these other subjects that I think deserve, and I would love to really get into a deeper conversation about, but we can maybe use that as a separate episode because there is a lot of overlap with what you guys are doing. Yeah. So I guess in closing, have we is there anything that maybe we breezed over that you guys would like to touch on or clarify or whatever?
I think just getting our message out. This has been great. Let's show some transparency. We have nothing to hide.
Yeah. That's right.
We're law-abiding citizens, man. We're here to help our community be as good as it can be, and that's our big message.
I want to invite you to join, have a look at our website, dccitizenstakeaction.com, and have a peruse. Go through it, have a look, and see what you can.
There's information on there about your rights as a citizen, what you can do legally. There's information regarding our success stories that we've had. There's resources on there. If you just want to go to the top there, Kevin. Yeah, right, and there. You can see the media links kind of about things that have been...
Should I click on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Okay. So you've got media link here. You got 3 of them. So what are these media links
here? But they're going to be like, these things with Mike Bernier and these videos that we've watched already. Okay. But if you go to success stories, you can kind of see, certain things that have taken place, things we've helped recover.
Very cool.
Yeah. So we're in the incipient phases of this this website, but it is starting to
December 5th, like you said, and then this is, I think, the most recent on the top, 2023, February 25th. Okay. Mm-hmm. What else?
One of the things I really would like you to people that are listening and, to do is to go to the website and have a look at the new package. There's a lot of information on there. 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 There's a lot of information on there
This is awesome, by the way. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm glad you guys have this on there. Sorry, continue on.
Yep. So when you go in there, look at the package for a new member and see what is expected of you, and it's not going to be for all people, but I tell you, it's if you want to make a change in a community, you need to do something.
Yeah.
And
where do you find this package?
I think if you go to resources.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, sorry,
Open
that was
letter
our
to attorney,
petition.
media links, blog, about, testimonials. Where would that be then?
it should be under. It might be just under about.
It's not under the home part, is it?
About us, okay. Ooh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll.
It's an ever evolving site. It's been
Yeah,
up
I mean,
for
people can go through. I'm glad. So when we were looking this up, something I'd like to point out is that when I first Googled this, it came up with an American website. So this link right here, what I'm going to do for anybody who's wanting to source this out and they're watching and they're seeing this and they want more information is I'm going to have this link in the show notes on the bottom. And along with anything else that you guys might want to provide for information, I'll make sure that as long as people look up the show notes underneath the description of what this episode is, you can click on it and then at least you get to the right place, because that was definitely a bit of a tricky site to find.
Mm-hmm. Well, it hasn't been up for very long, so the more traffic we get in there, of course, the closer it'll get. So
Yep.
Yeah. Under construction.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys, Kirk, Steve, and Tygh. And I think until next time, we can wrap it up here and away we go. I think it's going to be whiskey time now, isn't it?
Very good.
All right. Take care, guys.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.